Konnichiwa, watashi wa Nison desu. Or if you want to go by my YouTube channel's name, then watashi wa guru desu desu. Anyway, yeah, so I've been trying to learn some Japanese, and I guess before we get into this whole video, we'll kind of give like a brief history as to why I'm trying to learn Japanese, my history with just like, I don't know, Japanese media in general, and just some other things I want to say before we get into the, the rest of the video. So to kind of briefly debrief my history with Japanese media and culture and just Japan as a whole, okay, this is actually kind of funny. I feel like I should say this before anything else. I myself am not Japanese. I know I kind of got the whole slantai ching ching bang bang thing going on, but no, I'm actually half Korean and half American. I have never left the United States. I've only been to my hometown of Hanover, Pennsylvania, and then where I live now in Florida. You know, I've never left the States. I also visited like Virginia and Georgia before, and yeah, I mean, and the other states that I passed in between, I got a nice look at those as I was driving by, but that's it. But I have been obsessed with Japan and Japanese culture and media ever since I was young, whether that be their art, like, their music, or, just like, various like paintings, or there are other types of media and art forms that I tend to interact with, on a more frequent basis, whether that be anime, manga, video games, movies, just, anything like that. I don't know. There's something about Japan and that culture that I have always been drawn to, and especially when it comes to like their ideals and just the fact that like, like all around politeness and respect is basically baked into the language. Obviously, there's more polite ways of saying things, and then there's more casual things of saying things, like, if you're, trying to say like thank you with more respect, you'd be like, arigatou gozaimasu. And then, if you're just trying to say more casually, and you just be like, arigatou. I still gotta work on some of my pronunciations. Like sometimes when I say arigatou gozaimasu, I say like gozaimasu, right, when it really should be like gozaimasu. But again, I've been obsessed with Japan, their culture, their media, their art, everything about Japan really ever since I was a little kid. And yeah, so since I've been around, I can't really say around that type of culture because obviously I've never lived the States, but since I've been so immersed into the culture since I was young, I already had a bit of a fundamental understanding as to how they speak, how they communicate, and I've picked up on some words over the years, but I'm obviously far from fluent. I can barely get the accent down. Like I'm still, like within the last week, I started to learn hiragana and katakana, which has really helped with my accent and the way that I pronounce things in Japanese, but obviously I have a long ways to go. I can't carry a full conversation by any means. I can do some basic readings. I can say some things like, ringo wa watashi no desu, which would be like, this apple is mine. But I'm pretty proud of the progress that I've made so far. Again, I've been learning it for not even a week. It's been like less than a week at this point, and within that time frame, not only did I fully master hiragana and katakana within like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 days. Like I'm at the point now with hiragana and katakana where just reading it, I can, like, I'm completely fluent in it. Like I can speak it, I can read it, I can write both of them like through and through, even with the diacritics and hiragana, like, and katakana as well. I can like pick out what are the kas, what are the gas, what are the sas, what are the zas, what are the sus, what are the zoos. That one's still a little tricky for me sometimes to like really pronounce the D in zoo versus tsu, but I'm fully fluent in the alphabet. I'm just not fluent in speaking or putting words together. I know, again, I know some basic things, like I know that choshoku is breakfast, ranchi is lunch, and then yoshoku would be like dinner, and then like tabemono would be like food, taberu is eat, tapamasu would be the act of eating, watashi is I, watashi wa indicates that you're the subject of the thing. You put like wa to indicate that whatever you just said is like the subject, whereas you would say like watashi no to indicate that you're talking about something like being yours, like watashi no when I was saying the thing about the apple earlier. So like ringo wa watashi no desu. It's also hard to show you guys because it's literally like duct taped down to my, well, you can actually see some of them back there. I started putting sticky notes around my room on things that I use every day. So like I don't even have to look at my sticky note, and I know that I'm sitting at my desk, which is also called my tsukue. That's also another bad English habit that I need to break. Sometimes I kind of say tsukue when it should be like tsukue, like tsukue. And before we get any farther into this, I don't want to see those nerds down in the comments that they themselves are mainly only native in English and only recently learned Japanese and pretend and act like, they're like a Japanese master. They're like the guru, the #1 Japanese teacher, going around being all pedantic, trying to correct everybody anytime they slightly mispronounce or misspeak, or, don't exactly say the syllables, which isn't actually syllables in Japanese. It would be more moras is what they're called there. Anytime that they don't extend those ends for long enough trying to correct everybody, I don't want to see y'all in the comments like, actually, you mispronounced that. Actually, this is how you say it. Like, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't care. I'm not even a week into this. I'm just I've already seen enough of those people online. Just don't even do it. I'm just learning this for me, myself, and I because I am already so immersed in the culture. I've already been, debating on doing this for years. So it's just one of those things like, hey, I really want to do this. I love anime, I love Japanese video games and such, and there's so many video games from back in the day, because for those that don't know, not only am I a modern gamer, I play a ton of games on like my Switch and my PS5 and my Xbox and such, but I also like going back and playing stuff on like the Atari 2600 or the Super Nintendo. And for those that don't know, there was a lot of games, especially from the Super Nintendo / PS1 era, where, there's like a bunch of RPGs that were just exclusive to Japan, and I would love to play those versions of the games. And while yes, fan translations exist, it's not the same as seeing it in Japanese or playing it in Japanese, or in the PS1's case, hearing that Japanese voice acting and being able to fully understand it. Same thing with anime. There's some anime where, like, for Dragon Ball or Naruto, there's just something about, maybe it's a nostalgia thing where I've been watching it for so many years, where the English dub is just like the definitive versions of those shows for me. Some people may disagree, and that's completely okay, but like when I hear Goku in English going like, Kame, with like Sean Schimmel's voice there, it's like, okay, that's Goku right there. Whereas when I watch Dragon Ball in Japanese, it's like, it still sounds good, but it's not my Goku, you know what I mean? But then there is other anime where it's like, alright, this is like so Japanese that watching it in English just kind of feels like, not wrong, but it's just like, I feel like I might be getting more out of it if I watch it in Japanese, so that's mainly it. There's also a part of me that really wants to visit Japan one day, especially now that the Nintendo Museum is going to be opening later this year. I really want to visit that at some point, and obviously, it's only in Japan, so it would be useful to learn some Japanese before doing that. Will I ever end up doing it? I don't know. I have a lot of physical and mental health conditions that just make it hard for me to be out and about for long periods of time. Not going to go into that whole thing here. It's just, there's a lot of damage that's been done to my body over the years, unfortunately. But if I ever get to a point where I feel healthy enough, or if it's like, hey, YOLO, I'm gonna go out on a limb and just kind of deal with whatever my body throws at me, then maybe I can make it happen, but we'll see. There's also a part of me that kind of would like to move to Japan one day, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a very nice thought, and I would love to do that, but I've already lived my whole life in America, and there is a lot of things that I would really miss about this country that, it's just... It's one of those things where I'd go back and forth on it, and it's like, I feel like Japan is one of those places where it's like, I would love to live there, but there is just too many factors keeping me here grounded in America beyond just the familiarity of it. I also got like my little siblings here, and just, I don't know, it's like a gamer and a video game collector. There's just a lot of benefits to doing that type of thing in America. Not to mention the fact that as much as I love Japanese culture, there's a lot of like American stuff that I'm really into as well. It's one of those things where it's like, I really am like, even though in terms of my actual ethnicity, I'm like half Korean, half American, in terms of the stuff that I'm into, it might as well be like half Japanese, half American, you know what I mean? Because, I'm into the anime and all the other like Japanese type stuff, and I'm also into my more Americanized like Hollywood stuff. You got your Marvel, your Captain Americas, your Batmans, and all your other, American type stuff. I need my yearly Call of Duty, and that's about as American as it gets, you know what I mean? Anyway, yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with this. There was like some other things I wanted to do in this video, and we're still gonna get to those. Don't worry, the video is far from over. It was one of those things where I kind of had a structure laid out in my mind, but then I started talking, and it just kind of flew off the rails. Another random thing. I started looking into Japanese clothing, and I found this absolutely beautiful kimono on Amazon for about like $40 or something like that, and I would never spend that much on clothes normally, but it's really nice. And I know, like, I'm pretty sure like kimono is also something that females wear, but it's like for males, I found it's like the best thing I could compare it to is like sweatpants almost, but it's not sweatpants, and then there's like a jacket piece for it. It looks really, really cool, so I might order that for myself for my birthday since that's coming up here soon, but we'll see. Anyway, one thing I did, I don't know how well you guys can see it with the lighting, hopefully you guys can see it okay, but I scratched out the guide on my hiragana chart just to make sure I can actually memorize it, so let's go ahead and run through this together. Hope you guys can see it and still hear me okay. I'll move the mic this way. Hopefully you guys can hear me alright. So we got A, I, U, E, O, Ka, Ki, Ku, Ke, Ko, Sa, Shi, Su, Se, So, Ta, Chi, Tsu, Te, To, Na, Ni, Nu, Ne, No, Ha, Hi, Fu, He, Ho, Ma, Mi, Mu, Me, Mo. Almost got me there for a minute. Ya, Yu, Yo, Ra, Ri, Ru, Re, Ro, Wa, Wo, and That's the last one that some people get a little pedantic about. It's like, you didn't hold that N for long enough, which that is a real thing. Like in Japan, like, because I was talking about it earlier about like the whole syllables versus moras thing. I believe it's moro, maybe it's mora, or moro, however you're supposed to pronounce it. But rather than doing syllables, like when you say like McDonald's, they more do it off of the sound. So say if you're gonna say like karachi, you know, in English we go like katachi, but for them it's like, well, that's actually a terrible example because it would basically be the same thing there, except you just make sure there's no emphasis on anything. Like in America you might say like katachi and like put too much emphasis on one thing or another, whereas there it's like all of them are the same, right? You just say like katachi, like you say it all back to back for the same amount of time, roughly. Obviously, you know, with like human timing and such, it's not going to be exact for every single thing down to the millisecond, but you want to make it as close as possible, like katachi. The two main things tripping me up are the different sentence structure, or at least at first it was, because, you know, that's one thing that I've learned about learning a new language, is that you can't go into it translating English to Japanese. You have to just basically become a baby again and relearn how to speak in that language, because like if you try to convert everything, because, you know, there's those people online where, you know, they try to make videos like, oh, it's easy, instead of being like English where it's like subject, verb, object, it's subject, object, verb. So instead of saying I eat apple, it's I apple eat, which would be like, you know, if you try to completely like just one-to-one translate I eat apple to Japanese, that would be like watashi wa tabaru ringo. And that would literally just be like I eat apple, but really you'd want to say like watashi wa ringo da tabamasu. I might have forgotten to put the O in there. There's supposed to be an O between ringo and tabamasu. At least yeah, that sounds about right. Again, I'm still trying to learn all the particles and stuff. I have a few of them down, like no being possessive, wa meaning that that's like the subject of the thing, which means it would usually go after the first word in the sentence, depending on what you're talking about. I also mentioned that I'm also fluent in katakana, but I don't have a katakana chart printed out at the moment. I have it all written in my notebook, but katakana is literally the exact same as hiragana. It's just that the symbols are a bit different, but I mean, we went through it. I mean, you can assume that I'm also fluent in that because, again, it's the exact same sounds. Oh, and also one thing worth mentioning is that there is like different markings and such, which really, it's not that hard to learn. So basically for some of them, like for example, ka would become ga if there's 2 extra lines on it. And then for the ones that start with like H, for example, if there's like a degrees looking symbol, that means it would, because normally if there's 2 lines, the H would become a B, but if there's a degree symbol, it would become a P. So then like ha with 2 lines would become ba, but if it has a degree symbol, it would be pa. So again, like I have this stuff down. I just need to work on my vocabulary and my grammar, like sentence structure. Those are like my 2 main things, vocabulary and sentence structure, but I feel like right now I should be kind of working on vocabulary more or less so that I have vocabulary to use in my sentences. Like I said, I have a few things down, like I know ringo, which is apple, and then tabaru, which is eat, or tabamasu if you're talking about eating, tsukue from my desk. Again, we already ran through all the meals and stuff, and I know a few other words. I also know that ni means 2, but again, my knowledge is a little lacking, but it's okay. You know, I know there's probably also going to be people commenting being like, oh, if you're trying to learn Japanese, do this, or oh, you should do this, and I've been on the internet, I've been watching the videos, like, there are so many different ways that people are talking about, ooh, learn Japanese this way, do it this way, but me, I already have my own program in place. I already know, like, what's working for me so far. I have a few different apps I'm using, I have a few different YouTube channels I've found that are working, as well as just having Papago, which, not sponsored, by the way, but it's an app which lets you basically just, like, translate words into other languages, except it's a lot better than Google Translate, because usually when you translate something from English to Japanese with Google Translate, it gives you the honorific version of it. So like, you know, if you want to say like thank you to somebody, you wouldn't always just go arigatou gozaimasu, because that just, it's basically like saying thank you very much in a very honorable way. Whereas, you know, if it, say somebody gives you, oh, I don't know, 50 cents to go buy a gumball, you wouldn't be like, oh, thank you very much, oh my gosh, thank you, like, thank you, like, no, you wouldn't, you just say, oh, thanks, man, so you just go, arigato, and that's basically what's so nice about Papago, is when you're using it, there's a switch that can toggle between the honorific arigatou gozaimasu, or just arigato, and then again, I have some other stuff that I've been using, and other, like, studying routines, and some of the apps I'm using. I'm not using Duolingo, by the way, because I've heard that Duolingo is a little hit or miss, so I've got, like, 3 other apps I've kind of been bouncing between when it, just because like one of them's more based around speaking, one of them's more based around like just like the actual writing part of it. So, you know, I got all my systems in place. I just figured I'd mention that too, because I know I'd probably get bombarded with comments about like, oh, you should try this, oh, you should try this, and it's not that I'm not willing to take advice from anybody, because obviously I'm just the student, I'm just the learner. Of course I'm willing to take advice, but at the same time, I don't need like 5 million different opinions from a bunch of people on the internet that also themselves probably can't even speak Japanese and are just going off of what they learned off of other YouTube videos or clickbait titles. Another fun thing that that happened to me yesterday was I was able to read my first manga, which is pretty cool. It's called Crystal Hunters, which, you know, if you're trying to pronounce that in Japanese, it's a whole other thing. And it's actually pretty cool because it's, you know, for people like me that are beginners to just Japanese in general, so it kind of keeps that in mind while still being geared towards an older audience, and it still has nice illustrations and everything like that. So I was able to read through first couple pages of the first issue, and surprisingly my vocabulary is wide enough to where I was actually able to understand what was going on and follow it between the illustrations and just what was actually being said. So that was pretty cool. I also looked at the Dragon Ball manga and was able to look at the Japanese characters on the front, and I was able to read it, and it was like Dragon Ball or something like that, you know, just sounding it out with all the hiragana letters and stuff. Now, one thing that I thought would be pretty cool just to kind of show where I'm at with my skills with reading and stuff, which isn't too great, I at least wanted to pull up this children's book that I found that mostly has hiragana. I did not see any katakana in it, but if there is any katakana, again, I can read it, so it's not a big deal, but it looks to be mostly just hiragana. So this might take me a little bit to get through, so please, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna try to read this whole thing, but there's a couple of pages in here. We're gonna get through this together, and yeah, I don't know, like, basically any kanji. I know some kanji. I know about, like, 20, 30 of them, maybe, I want to say, but yeah, nowhere near fluent in thousands of them, which isn't a big deal because, you know, there's even a bunch of Japanese adults that don't even know all the kanji, you know what I mean? That's just one of those things where as long as you have, like, hiragana and katakana down, you're at least making good progress, and, you know, kanji isn't an immediate thing as long as you're not planning to visit Japan, which, again, as I spoke about earlier, that's not an immediate plan, so I have all the time in the world to get kanji down over time. So here we are. I believe this book is called Two Frogs. I think that's what the English name was, but, again, I just kind of pulled up, like, a children's book here, so we'll just kind of go through and read this together. Please bear with me. I know my pronunciations, pacing, this, that, or the other might not be off. Again, this is one of my first times actually trying to read Japanese in a book format. The only other time was that manga, which is obviously much different from like a traditional book, even if this is just a kid's book. So please bear with me. I'm gonna do my best. But anyway, all right, let's go through this together. Nihiki no kaeru gensaku ni mi nankichi. Yeah, there we go, got through that. It's funny, because I look at these and I know right off the rip, like, ki, chi, and, like, I can read it no problem, but it's when I'm trying to put it all together that my brain kind of stumbles, because I guess I'm just, I don't know, just my English brain going crazy. And thankfully, they have the kanji labeled with all of the hiragana, which I'm much more familiar with, so that makes things a whole lot easier. So, right here we have, midoni no kaeruto ki ni ro no kaeru ga. Yeah, ga. Imashita. There we go. First page down. On to the second page. Nihiki no kaeru ha. Or, no, that'd be wa, sorry, because it's at the end. At least I believe so. Again, that's one of those things where, like, it kind of depends on the context, but usually if it's at the beginning, I've noticed that would actually be ha, but if it's at the end, like, at the end of konnichiwa, even though that would normally be ha, at the end of konnichiwa, there's actually a ha, which means, which would then mean why. I know that's, like, another confusing thing, so that would actually probably be, because the no right here would be a particle, so right here, I'm assuming this again would be kaerua, hatake de, yeah, taka, or hatake de ai mashita. There we go. Kimi no, oh man, yeah, look at this, they got all this kanji up here. No, and then that would be that's a particle right there, which means we're going into this, which would be ki. I think when there's two e's back together, you don't necessarily go ki. I think that would more just be a dragged out e, right? But there's also a line that indicates when a vowel is supposed to be longer, so I don't know if, like, I don't know if I'm supposed to go kiro or if I go kiiro, kiiro wa. I don't know, either one sounds fine. Kitana ine midori. Oh yeah, here's this thing I was talking about where you got this long vowel right here. So like again, midori chi bana. Yeah, ban at the end there. Ban. You gotta put emphasis on that. Midori ha kita nai or nai nai Yeah, something like that. Nai. Yeah, again, we have another situation where it's like ki and then e, but I think this is supposed to be different, so I'll just go kiiro. Oh, kiiro ichi ban. There we go. Kenka ga hajimarimashita. Sono toki tsume. Yeah, there we go. Tsumeta I ka ze ga fukimashita. Fuyu ga kimasu. Or wait, no, that's at the end. So masu, so that'll be more like mas, right? Yeah, mas, because mas, normally when you see either desu or masu, that would, or that, you know, that's not actually how you pronounce it. It would be more like desu or masu. But in Japanese, that would actually be silent, usually if it's at like the end. So like mas, at least I'm assuming that's how it would be in this scenario. Nihiki no kaeru ha tsuchi no nakani hairi mashita. I'm noticing that one popping up a lot. Ta? I don't know. This isn't obviously like a poem or anything like that, but it seems like there's like a rhythm to the cheetah. I don't know. That's just what I'm noticing. It's a child's book, so that's probably some. I don't even know what's going on here. I'm just, you know, trying to work on my reading skills. Because again, I can look at each. Like if I look at these individually, I just go no, tsu, chi, su, ma, ne. Like I can point them out instantly, but when I'm trying to read them all together, my brain starts to jumble. I think that's just like my English side trying to take over and just me not being as familiar with Japanese yet. Work in progress. We're getting there. Nihiki no. Oh wow, look at me. I went through that one pretty good. Nihiki no ka eruha wa. It's at the end, so wa. Ruwa. Tsuchi no naki de. But that's another tricky one because sometimes it's like te, but then I've also seen it pronounced in another way. Or wait, no, that's actually he. I was thinking of it. Yeah, he is the one that can be pronounced differently. Never mind. I don't know. I've also seen te and de used in different situations though. I'm still learning my particles and all these different things. So the only other one I know is that this indicates it's sort of like a period, but it indicates like the end of a statement. So namas. Yeah, that'd be namas because again that's masu. So namas. Or nemas. Haru ga kimashita. Oh, and then I guess he's like dreaming or something, so he's saying atiti or atata kai. Haruta. Haruta. I just learned a new word. There we go. Kimochi ii. Again, I think that's another situation where you go ii, or maybe it's just e, like really dragged out. So like that'd be like kimochi yo. Like you'd have to drag that out. Like so I don't know. I think that's more supposed to be like kimochi ii to yo. Kimochi ii no ne. Oh, okay, and then I guess, see, that was another thing tripping me up for a moment. I almost went into this thing reading it right to left just because I was reading manga yesterday, and obviously that one's right to left, but I'm pretty sure Japanese books are still left to right, unless I'm reading this in the wrong order, in which case, whoops, I sincerely apologize, but, Tofun, or no, I'm sorry, there's the symbols there, so that'd be, Tobun. There we go. I think that means going into the water, maybe? I'm probably completely wrong about that, but... Oh, I just noticed that it also has the katakana right there. So, I guess it's, yeah, I don't know. I guess it has a mix of both katakana and hiragana in here, because, yeah, that would be like the N symbol for katakana, and then that's the hiragana N right there, or the N sound. Kimi no ki-iro. Or, yeah, ro, right? Yeah, ro. Kirei da ne. Kimi no midori mo kirei da yo. Mou? Mou? That's how you'd say that, right? Mou? Unless the U goes silent, goes mo? And still, yeah, I think you have to pronounce it like Mou. Then Ken Ka Ha. Or Wa. Yeah, because it's at the end, so Ken Wa. Yo or Ya. Yame Yo. And if you're wondering why I'm reading this, despite the fact that I can't understand it, my reading skills are so trash, it's because I want to be able to look back at this in like a year or two and just see how far I progressed and see like, because I'm sure by then I'll at least be able to understand what this children's book is saying, at least I'd hope so. Nihiki no kaeru wa. There we go, see I picked up on the wa that time, there we go. Mou ke, it seems like there's a space right there, so I guess that's mou, and then Kenka wo shimasen tomo dachi desu. So again, that's desu, so it would be more like this. Oh, and then I guess that's the end of the book, where I guess that's just saying so, well, it's two, so, you know, ni, and then hiki no. Does that mean two frog? Is that, because I know the book is called Two Frogs, so is hiki... Because no, again, implies that it, like, belongs to somebody. Like, for me, if I was saying an apple belongs to me, I'd be like, watashi no. So would that be two frog something? So, like, I guess hiki means frog? I'm probably, but you know what? Let's Google Translate that one. Okay, so frog, would that be hiki? Or, oh no, wait, now I'm really confused. Okay, so it's keru. But, or kaeru, yeah, because it would be kaeru, because there's no er, like, letter in Japanese. There's only a ka, and then there's an a, or an a, and then a ru, so it'd be like kaeru. The R's are a little harder first, because it's like, it's in between, like, an L and an R. You have to be like, ru, so, like, normally instead of saying like, oh, I have a rubber band in Japanese, you know, you say like rubber. Like, obviously the Japanese word isn't rubber, but that's just how you pronounce the R. It's just like rubber, kaeru. Well, now I really want to know what that other word was. So what was it, hiki? Yeah, it doesn't really seem like it's really translating to something else. Hiki, yeah, it's not. Maybe I have to look up the hiragana version of it with like the hiragana characters, but I'm not exactly sure. Anyways, yeah, that was my first time reading a Japanese children's book. Again, even though I didn't really understand what was going on or what was being said, and even though my reading skills suck, you know, it's just one of those things where I wanted to do that just then I kind of can document it in a way and look back on this in like, I don't know, like a year or two and just see where I'm at in terms of my fluency. Again, it's not one of those things where I'm necessarily in a rush, you know, just whenever I have time, you know, because obviously I still have a lot of other things to do with my life. I love binging my video games day in and day out, and I love making these videos on a daily basis, so it's just usually one of those things where it's like when I first wake up, like right in the morning before I eat breakfast, and then like right before bed, and as well as when I'm doing stuff for work, like when I'm waiting for videos to render or waiting for videos to upload or something like that, like when I just have some time to kill, trying to get in at least, you know, just a little bit of time every day. I'm also I'm not making it a burden. I'm making sure I get in at least some practice every day, like at least making sure at bare minimum I set aside like 10 to 15 minutes just to go over my hiragana and katakana, just to make sure I don't forget anything, go over basic phrases, and also like with my mom and stuff, I've been just talking in Japanese anytime that I can, and also making sure I translate it for her just so she's not confused. But you know, since you know I don't have any friends, I don't really have any family IRL, the only people I even talk to anymore are like my siblings and my mother. I've at least made sure to just talk to my mother so that I'm talking at least somewhat in Japanese, but I've also just spent a lot of time sitting in my room just kind of talking to myself in Japanese, just learning these things. And that's one of the cool things about my journey, is the fact that, you know, for a lot of people, they have teachers, they have people they talk to. Well, there's nothing wrong about doing that. I'm always the type of guy where I just like doing things myself, you know what I mean? Just doing it by myself, you know, just like, hey, I did this for myself, I got here, I put the work in, I did this. And even though I'm using outside resources like YouTube videos and, you know, all these different apps and such, it's like, hey, I'm the one putting in the time to do this, no one's forcing me to do it, I'm doing this because I want to do it, I'm garnering this knowledge, and I just think that's pretty cool. But again, it's not one of those things where it's like, hey, I'm gonna do this day in, day out, 12 hours a day and forget everything else about my life just to learn it. No, you know, just going at my own pace, doing this type of thing for fun, and hopefully by the time I'm like, I don't know, maybe like 30, 35 years old, I'll be able to speak somewhat fluent Japanese, hold a basic conversation, and watch most anime while being able to understand at least 85% of it. But anyways, yeah, I've been jib-jabbing for long enough. Yeah, look at that, I've been speaking so much Japanese that I can't even speak English anymore. Oh gosh. If y'all thought my ADHD, stuttering, and like weird pronunciations and trouble just speaking plain English sometimes is bad enough before, but who knows, it might get even worse, and it might even, like, combine, and then, like, my Japanese and English speaking will just both become worse or something, you know. My ADHD is crazy, man, who knows. I've learned lately that ADHD is not a curse, and it's not something that I can just be like, man, this sucks, and be all mad about it. It's just something you have to adapt to, live with, and learn how to do your best with what you've been given, you know what I mean? Just because I have ADHD and just because my brain works in the complete opposite way that literally any other single human being's brain has ever worked, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means I'm unique and I gotta find my own unique ways through this thing called life. And honestly, that makes life a bit more fun. And I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to ADHD, for those of you that have it, you know all about the thing called hyperfixation. And yeah, you know, I'm not gonna lie, this whole Japanese thing, it is a bit of a hyperfixation for me at the moment, and that's completely okay, because I'm also, it's just another thing on the pile of other things I'm hyperfixated on. You know, there's those things where it's like some things come in and I'm temporarily hyperfixated on it just because ADHD does this thing, but then there's the other things that I just do on a daily basis and have done for years that I'm just constantly hyperfixated on. Making YouTube videos, constant hyperfixation. Playing video games, constant hyperfixation. Watching anime, all the other stuff that, you know, that I mentioned before that are my hobbies, all of those stuff, hyperfixation. Japanese, throwing it into my hyperfixation pile. Why not? But anyway, as always, a massive shout out and thank you to all of the patrons and channel members. Thank you to all of you in the low baller tier, and an even bigger shout out and thank you to all of you in the big baller tier, Mellow King, and Big Daddy Manny, and the biggest shout out and thank you to all of you in the G tier, Riding Revengeance, and Little Cheese Girl. Thank you guys so much. You guys are literal legends. I love you. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.